Hello, everyone, and welcome to Slate's webinar, Turning Construction Data into Decisions with AI-Powered Software. I am Jeffrey Nesbitt. I'm in charge of partnerships here at Slate Technology and have been in the industry for roughly about 25 years on all sides, not only the technology side, but working for software vendors as well as consulting for CPA firms, and a long time ago, many years ago, as an estimator in the trades. So looking forward to sharing with you today how Slate's overcoming challenges in the industry and what it means to you.
Wonderful. And my name is Garrett Jones, VP of Product and Strategy here at Slate. Been in the industry about 10 years, a little over, spent time as an engineer, project manager, consultant, and now tech. So looking forward to diving into one of our products with you all today. Our agenda for today is pretty simple. We're going to walk you through who we are as a company, some of the pain points we understand the industry is going through and growing through right now, and how Slate is positioning itself to solve those pain points. We'll spend about 10 minutes or so doing that, and then we'll dive into one of our products for a deep dive and field questions. If you would, please reserve your questions for the end. We'll tackle all those at the same time. So who is Slate? You saw on the first page, we have 3 core SaaS products. We're a subscription service company backed by over 50 patents. This is all our own build. This is our tech stack, and we're incredibly proud of it. We serve and aim to serve nearly every vertical that's investing in CapEx right now. The emergence of data centers at the forefront of most people's minds. We are involved there. The supporting infrastructure sits behind them and the other necessities that are powering this kind of next wave of human capital, human growth, both nationally and internationally. We aim to support, and then all the tangential industries as well, manufacturing, supply chains, public, private partnerships. Our tools are geared to support nearly every stakeholder in this industry as well. Today, we'll be focusing on our AI that enables project management and or project execution delivery. So we'll be speaking to more of the EPCC crowd. But if you have questions about other software or solutions, let us know. Now, to set the table, I'm sure everyone's aware of this if you're on this call, but the way we build is evolving. It wasn't too terribly long ago, maybe a bit before my time, but not too much further before, that we were still using manual methods of data collection, if any data collection at all, to monitor, design, monitor, and ultimately produce projects. Fast forward a bit, the emergence of CAD, Revit, and the other call it like big bespoke systems that end up becoming synonymous with the built environment showed us the power of what digital tools could be in terms of successful project delivery, but they didn't solve what we consider to be the most important issue, which is insight. How do we make our practice, our industry smarter? Now we can. AI, the emergence of it, both in the public and private space, has transformed the way people are working, and we think it can be just as impactful for the construction industry. What are some of the issues we know are prevalent in our industry? Everyone who's not in construction or adjacent to construction calls it a dinosaur, and in many ways it is, but we know that by virtue of the complexity of the projects we support and we try to produce, there are some standard truths: disconnected project teams, fragmented visibility in terms of both data, its management, and what's being collected, right? Numerous applications and our tools scattered across the value chain that aim to solve problems but end up creating more because of their prevalence. Inconsistent data. I don't know about you all, but in my engineering days, arguing over what mattered for a change order was something that always became a late night activity it was not necessarily fun. And then simply connecting people. It's a physical realm that we play in, despite all the digital capabilities that we have. Ultimately, something's getting built, and tying what's happening in person, in situ, in the field, to all the plans and the agendas and the outcomes we forecasted can be difficult. How does this materialize? Well, it materializes in many ways, but one of the things that we are incredibly keen on fixing is reduction and rework. And we understand now that some smart people have done some good surveys that over 50% of rework is caused by poor data management and miscommunication. We know in the U.S. it's worth $65 billion alone. arguably more. This is what people are willing to report and or be analyzed on. And the industry is not changing, right? If anything, it's getting more complex, and we've seen these numbers, this assumed rework potential only increase, not decrease, in modern times.
Thanks, Garrett. So if we think of work being productivity, the rework that Garrett's been talking about is really the opposite. And so surveying thousands and thousands of contractors, what we found is the redo is more expensive than you think. It's 6 times more expensive to redo the same activity than doing it right the first time. So all your indirect costs from rework, supervision, resourcing, material procurement, all this starts to add up to costing 6 times percent more than the original task. And furthermore, the ugly cousin of rework for me is really job safety. And you're twice as likely for an injury to happen when you're doing the same activity twice, right? So that increases the likelihood of a mishap happening. And, even goes further beyond that. For my consulting days, when there was injuries, that's bad enough. We're talking about the human factor, and it could be very critical. But, there's consequences beyond just the injury, right? Our insurance goes up. That's another associated cost that we're unaware of, right? Insurance goes up, it never goes down. It could affect bonding capacity for jobs moving forward as well. That should become now a liability. And I think worst of all, what we found is it's that 38% of that rework goes unreported or unbilled, right? And that's because we don't have tools we have multiple tools as contractors and a tech stack that don't talk to each other necessarily very well. So it's easy for things to slide through the cracks and go unbilled. Again, lost revenue. And so when Garrett was talking about how projects suffer, we've done the studies, and studies have been done where the time is being wasted. And this is really where Slate is looking to help the industry. What are the challenges we're trying to solve? And that's rework and time being wasted. How do we get the most out of the people that we have? We already have a labor shortage in this industry. And the fact that 35% of their time is spent on non-optimal activities is challenging, right? And so if we're looking at it and we're losing roughly 14 hours a week per person, across my organization, whether that's looking for project data or reworking mistakes, trying to find data, those things, right? There's a cost impact to not fixing this problem. And when we look at across an organization, from the bid to the closeout, everybody touches this job naturally in its life cycle of its progression. And so when we look at that and we average that out to 14 to 15 hours, there is an annual impact that's pretty significant in our industry. And when we think about it further, we build some of the most complex jobs in the world with some of the tightest margins. Can we really afford to be losing this time? My answer is obviously no, and I think it would be yours as well. So how do you connect people and technology and projects for better insights? That's the problem that we are solving at Slate. And so before we jump into a presentation, I'd like to just share a slide or two so you have an understanding of what we'll be seeing today. So we work across multiple platforms, industry standards, Primavera, P6, Microsoft Project, Autodesk Construction Cloud, Procore, Trimble, Kahua, right? These are those platforms that we're all using today to manage our job. And what Slate does is we ingest that data, and not when we ingest the data, we're also ingesting the human experience. And what I mean by human experience is if I'm ingesting an RFI, I'm not just bringing over the data, we're recreating the data from a workflow perspective. And why is that important? Because when we apply our construction specific LLM language to it, it's going to generate intelligent insights and lessons learned. We want to be able to take those insights and the human input from how we digest that information and push it back perpetually into whatever tool we pulled it from. So if we are pulling information from Procore, we want to push that intelligence back in the appropriate workflow that your teams are used to doing and working. So the best way to look at it is through forms. And forms, I consider those coming from our standard let's call them industry platforms that we mentioned, the Procores, the Kahuas, the Autodesks of the worlds, and that could be any combination of forms. But we also have other inputs like lessons learned, historical jobs, specifications, maybe drawings, even written notes, let's just say. So as we bring that in, we apply that to a schedule. That's a central nervous system, our backbone in Slate. And we've been working on this now for 3.5 years. And so the power that you're going to see is happening with our auto linking and insights generation. And so when we take all those data sources and forms and we apply our auto linking and machine learning, we're going to get some scheduled standards. We're going to have predictive schedule risks and lessons learned. That's what's going to come out of that information. So keep that in mind as we're going through the presentation. It can be any type of form or any data source that we want to ingest with our auto linking and tying it to our schedule baseline. That's where we're going to get these 3 buckets of standards, risks, and lessons learned. So let's go ahead and jump into the product and spend our time there going through that. So that you should now be seeing our main application, Project Intelligence. Quickly here, what we'll see is we're 36 days behind schedule. We've got our start dates, our completed dates, but maybe I want to dig in a little deeper to understand really what does that mean. So when I go ahead and I launch in, this is sort of a main page, our current operations, our insights as of today. Where are we at? And we'll see our project complete date, when's it started, our plan versus actual progress, any changes. In here, we have a summary of AI generated information based on the problems we're seeing, the causes and impacts, and then again, recommendations. I would call this more of my executive level. This is where I jump in. I just want to see a quick snapshot. Where are my activities delayed for the last 30 days? Maybe I want to slide that, bridge it out, understand exactly where those things are and jump in. Again, this is from more of an executive type level dashboard where you're going to be viewing this. What are your actionable insights? Do we want to email those from here? But most folks are going to jump right into the meat of it and look at our scheduled insights. This is the first bucket that we're going to focus on for today. And scheduled insights is looking at where are we at currently in our activities in our schedule, and we're going to align that with other platforms. In this case, we're going to use Procore as an example. So we're going to be pulling submittals, RFIs, issues, tasks, things like that from Procore, and we're going to be aligning it with our schedule. So if I want to get real granular and say, show me all my scheduled insights based on my submittal activity, now again, I'm going to be filtering down and looking at things just by submittals coming from our operations tool. This could be Procore, this could be Autodesk Construction Cloud, Trimble, project sites, those types of things. And as we delve in deeper, we can quickly see, okay, I've got an open issue here, 4-day delays due to low voltage rough-in. Well, when I click Analyze, what it's going to show me is the WBS of activity. I have an open submittal that's likely causing a delay. So if I look at this and I click, it's again pulling from another platform, right? Combining with our schedule to see my planned end date or planned start date is July 16th for this scheduled activity. But here I've got a submittal date of the 21st. So that's where I'm seeing that delay. So I'm pulling information from multiple platforms into one singular source to see scheduled insights. And when in looking here, I can quickly see, okay, what are my predecessors? What are my successors? What is that delayed activity? Giving me those snapshots, real time, where are we at in this project and what things do we need to be concerned about? If we need to be concerned about this, we can go ahead, email, push this out to somebody. We can give it a thumbs up that this is very important. So again, as we continue, as the machine continually learns, we'll see. Or if we say, you know what, it's not important, this is something we're aware of, maybe we're going to give it a thumbs down and we move on. Again, these insights and the idea is not for Slate to tell you what to do. This is still the human factor. Our job is to serve up insights in a meaningful way for you to make decisions on your job. Do I need to action on this activity? Is it important? Yes or no? Again, tying information from multiple tools together in one area to see. The thing we do in addition to this, which will be important when we get to digesting the information later, is you can see we add additional attributes like weather. We add CSI codes. We add areas, phases, trade contractors, all these additional attributes that candidly allows you to slice and dice and review the information in a way that you don't have today. And a lot of times this is information that you don't have in any applications today. So we're going to apply that in. So if we're looking, and we're going to have a low voltage delay, we've got, open items here, and this was a RFI, there's a weather. So an example, we're pouring concrete. There's some weather coming in. We want to surface that. We want to be able to give you insight. If you've got high winds and there's crane activity, or we're doing, drywall and there's humidity, like just additional attributes to help give you insights into your job. And then what we also do is we have an impact analysis. So we're going to bring your schedule in from Microsoft Project P6, Asta Power, and you're going to be able to start to see that information in here and what is the impact. And if you want to drill down by the top 5 contributors and see that, you can do this in real time. And again, when I click here, you'll see you pick and choose how do you want to sort this data for your scheduled impact and understand. And there's lots and lots of options here, but again, gives you the ability to analyze your data in a different way. And that's scheduling insights. Again, what we're doing is we're pulling information from multiple platforms and candidly historical data and aligning it with your schedule. And so we're typically emailing this out to you at a 4, 6, 8 week look ahead, whatever cadence is important to you as an organization. We're emailing it. From your email, you can actually click in and it will take you right here to the application of those things where you can assign and delegate those opportunities to your field staff to look at, or you can just come in right here. Again, surfacing insights, I think this is important to understand across multiple platforms, because as contractors, we have tech stacks that run the gamut. And so adding an agentic AI layer over your current tools to tie them into your schedule, I think is highly impactful. The second area that we'd like to focus on today is lessons learned. Again, very similar to schedule insights, but here we've ingested all your historical jobs. Sorry, I clicked the wrong button. We've ingested all your historical jobs. And so on the left-hand side here is a list very similar to what you saw in scheduled insights, is a list of all your upcoming activities based on where you are in a job. And if I click on one of these called MEP penetrations, what you'll see is I have lessons learned based on MEP. Now, if I've got a scheduled activity in my schedule and I have no lessons learned, it's not going to show up here. So everything that's showing up on the left-hand side is telling me you've got a lessons you've learned based on your historical jobs. And so the lesson learned is based on that activity, MEP penetrations, as I mentioned. And the lesson learned is mini split units, HVAC leaks. From here, what we're doing is saying, here's the issues, here's the preventative actions. And in this particular case, as I mentioned, we are constantly feeding this information back into its source data. In this case, Procore. So if this is meaningful information and we want to send this back to Procore, we could push this back to Procore and it's going to go into issue tracking or observations. Again, as I mentioned, we're ingesting that data and its human intent. So we are pushing this information back into your operations platform for action. So your end users are going to be getting additional insights and information into their current tools that they use. They don't have to go out and learn a new tool. This is going to be pushed into there for their normal activity and actioning. The additional thing that's nice is a lesson learned can be a 1-to-1 ratio, or in this case, it could be 1 to many, meaning there's many lessons around MEP penetrations in our activity. Some of it's structural and drawing conflicts. Some of it's air handling. Again, keep it in mind, all this is AI generated based on digesting the information and lining it up against your historical jobs. An additional thing that we see companies do is say, before you push it over Slate into Procore or Autodesk, I want you to also tie in our normal standard checklists. There we go. Again, so this is internal checklists. Some companies want their SOPs put in here, and other companies are going to go ahead and push to Procore. But to give you an example of what does this look like based on my historical data, again, the activity in my schedule is installing brackets and front soffit detail, and the lesson learned is siding and trim installation. We've come up with a description, a building classification, an issue type, and preventative actions. All this was generated by viewing your historical data. So if I look, to my left is that lesson learned, siding and trim installation. We are then looking across these 5 jobs here in the middle where we had the same activity, siding and trim installation. And to the far right is all the activities, whether that was material procurement problem, whether that was a trade contractor, whether it was an issue with the actual components leaking. This is the area where we are taking all your historical job and applying our agentic AI to serve up this lesson learned. One of the things that we find is everyone wants a lesson learned. The challenge around it is the human input is, did the same PM and field people that started the job complete the job? And how much of it is their opinion or covering their backside, if you will, as to why there was an error on a job. So again, this is a very analytical approach, skimming through your historical data, lining up with your current scheduled activities to give you true insight into a lesson learned and what actions should we take from it. Again, with the ability to email it from here, but more importantly, I think, is pushing it back into the data source where you as a contractor can action on that item in a meaningful way, right? So again, adding intelligent layers to your schedules, your operation tools, your historical data and jobs to give you that insight to action on. You know, talking with a mining contractor recently, Jeffrey, I'm so tired of repeating the same mistake over and over again when I build the same type of mine on the same type of activity. That's really the challenge. That's the rework we're talking about that Garrett mentioned, right? A $65 billion problem, the lost hours, the lost revenue, the tight margins. That's really what Slate is trying to address here when we're looking at lessons learned. Giving you that insight across your data to make meaningful decisions and avoid costly errors before they happen. And again, this is sort of done in a 4 or 6 week look ahead. This list is forever changing based on where we are in that life cycle of the job. So as I mentioned in the scheduling insights and additional attributes pushing, if we go ahead and we want to jump into a dashboard, this is more than just a dashboard. It's more beyond just a BI tool. This is, again, tying data from multiple applications together in a meaningful way. And this is something that our clients do or our partners do for our clients, is create these intelligent dashboards where we can start to look at things in different ways, understanding what are all the activities at risk over the next 3 months. If I want to drill down more specifically, just show me the stuff, you know, that's critical. Okay, well, now we got 12 activities. That's a little bit more manageable. Again, you know, when we start talking about resources on our job sites, having enough people to do the job, with the labor shortage, it's a struggle. So this just gives us additional ways to understand where should we be focusing our efforts. You know, here's a simple bubble chart, my planned start versus remaining float. I can see here, I've got a lot of float. It's starting later. Maybe I really should be focusing my efforts here in electrical rough-in, which I've got negative float, and it's starting sooner. Again, different ways to slice and dice that data. And I think the powerful part is when we start to talk about adding additional attributes or data that you don't have. You know, a good example is we're tagging and adding an attribute called CSI division. So here I can start to see my lessons learned based on CSI divisions. And no surprise, you know, plumbing, heating, electrical, you know, our MEP is got some challenges. There's a lot of lessons learned there. But what we do is we take it a step further and we can start to add additional attributes to your data, like, let me see my lessons learned by a heat map, and it's CSI divisions versus issue type. Again, we have found what is the root cause. The root cause is nowhere in anybody's data, but we, through our auto linking and generative AI, construction specific, can say, okay, again, a lessons learned heat map based on root cause, aligning across my CSI divisions. I don't have a huge staff, so where should I be focusing my time? Where should I be concerned? It quickly shows me, you know, I want to go over that we've got some malfunctions happening. Maybe it's causing some leaks. Maybe it's an equipment issue. Again, giving me visibility into looking at things in a different way. Some people want to see it by bubble charts. And why is that? It's lessons learned versus form counts. And if you remember what are forms, those are the RFIs. Those are the submittals. Those could be change orders. They could be any type of information that we are ingesting. And I can quickly see that, you know, again, to that plumbing leak, I've got 74 forms and I've got 13 lessons learned. So maybe I want to drill in there and understand it, as opposed to, hey, I've got 207 forms here, but really only 3 lessons learned. So again, helping narrow my focus as to where do I want to spend my time and energy. So how you want to slice and dice that information is really up to you. And to show what is the power of what is Slate doing, we have this insight mind map that I'm going to show you. Again, I want you to keep in mind, over the past 3.5 years, as we've been working on this and creating the auto linking, we are not teaching it what RFIs are, what are submittals, what are change orders, what are activities and schedules or resources. We are just aligning these insights for you and surfacing them for you to make critical business decisions. But from a human perspective, if I had to go into Procore and in my schedule and in my historical jobs and maybe even Excel or some other documentation to serve this up, it's almost impossible really for a human to do, or at least one that's not an army, if you will, of humans. And so when I click on this, what you're going to see is the linking that's happening in real time. Every time a new change order is created, every time a new RFI or submittal or a new activity is changed or completed in my schedule, what's happening is we're ingesting that and tying it together in real time to serve up those insights. So this is just meant to be a tool to show you how complex our jobs are and all the data points and where is it coming from. To be able to surface this stuff in a quick, digestible format is almost impossible today as a contractor when I've got 10 different technologies that I'm using to manage my job. And so essentially, really what we are doing is we are doing all that in the background for you. And so if you zoom out, you know, quickly you see that the jumbled mess that really is what a contractor has to deal with on a daily basis, right? Your jobs are very complex and you have loads of data. And what Slate's target is to take that data chaos and turn it into clarity, turn it into actionable insights to mitigate risks on our job. Where can we see the problem before it happens? How can we leverage that information to make business decisions that affect our bottom line? As I mentioned, we build the most complex jobs with the tightest margins, and fractional points make huge differences, right? Eliminating rework on a job essentially is eliminate, you know, that 6%, right? We're eliminating that. So you can become 6% more profitable just by eliminating some of those reworks. And that's really what Slate is looking to do for contractors, is help prevent problems before they happen, give you the tools across your technology stack to have meaningful data to make those decisions. And I'll just pause there, Garrett, if you'd like to add some commentary.
You incredibly well said. All across the board. And so I guess just to kind of summarize, right? Like when we take a step back and look at what our platform can do, disparate data silos, one of the key pain points identified at the very beginning of our conversation, broken now by incorporating into a single source of truth that is our Slate AI intelligence model. Insight generation in the form of lessons learned, what has happened before, the root cause, why, and how we think we can fix it. And then mapping that plus the I'll call it open form flow of a project to a schedule to identify risks in execution. So we're helping aggregate information, again, saving and creating efficiencies within an institution or an enterprise, right? Not having to have an army, to Jeffrey's point. We're synthesizing that into clear, actionable insights. Think of it almost as like the lessons learned as a dynamic risk register that allows you to see what really matters on your projects. That heat map Jeffrey showed you is a great example of that. And then turning all this into operational or executional awareness, with the express goal then of allowing you to prioritize to get the best outcomes. We know it's a constrained market. We know it's hard to find labor both in the field and in the trailer. We understand that there's a retirement hurdle that's coming forward. And meanwhile, the demand for CapEx execution is skyrocketing in many industries. How can you do more with less? How can you do better with less? Slate aims to answer that question.
Thanks, Garrett. I'd like to add a lot of ways that folks are using lessons learned. What we talked about today was it was proactive in the sense that we are serving these up as the job is progressing ahead of time, so you can get in front of problems before they happen. But another great use case in the way our clients are utilizing this tool is also in the bidding and estimating takeoff process, where estimators are going in and looking at lessons learned on similar jobs, again, to the point of being able to say, hey, we've made this mistake several times. Let's go ahead and fix that on the front end. And so we can eliminate essentially this lesson learned from our lessons learned database. And so this is a database that ebbs and flows as organizations grow. And what does that mean? That means as I get better and better, I should have fewer and fewer lessons learned, essentially, right? We should get better at our job. We should be able to eliminate this install bracket front soffit detail problem that we've had over the last 5 years because we've incorporated into our estimating and our bidding process. We've worked it actively in our current jobs. And so as we take on new jobs, maybe there's new lessons learned we're going to get. And as we're doing jobs we're very comfortable with or repeatable, some of those lessons learned should be shrinking as we continually get better as an organization. Those are just some of the few use cases that we see. We do have a Q&A session that is coming up. If you'd like to ask questions, have us go into some other areas of the application or show, we'd love to do that. Go ahead and submit those questions.
And it can be about anything. It can be about use cases, like Jeffrey mentioned. There are many clients we are actively supporting right now in discussion with supporting about pulling these insights into the pre-feed realm. To Jeffrey's point about planning, how do we get better with what we know happens in the field and what that means for our design and our budgeting and our scheduling. Happy to talk about the technology itself, its capabilities, and or any clarifications needed based on what was presented today. And do feel free to take note of the emails on the screen. You're welcome to reach out to us at any point in time if you don't have a question now. We're happy to set aside time to review.
Yeah, or take a deeper dive into what it can mean for your organization. And
absolutely.
And today's webinar was focused on project intelligence and our AI component of, again, tying our technology stacks together to serve up scheduling insights, impact, and risk mitigation, and lessons learned, right, to get in front of rework and eliminate those problems. We also have two other products, Progress and Generate. And while we're waiting for some questions to come in, Garrett, maybe you could just mention Progress, the challenges that solves. We won't go into demonstration today. and generate. So if folks are interested in those, they can reach out as well.
Absolutely. And going back to the beginning of this, we understand there's pain points across the value chain, the life cycle of a capital project. And so we have this AI solution that sits across all the information. We also have a platform called Generate that automates design outputs. So think of it as compressing rapidly the design execution timelines for a project, pre-feed, feed, bid, starting with initial inputs or pro forma for a project, rapidly generating a model based on that, pulling quantities and other drawings from that model, and leveraging them as required. Again, fidelity, whether it's 30%, 60%, 100% completion, or bid. We're able to generate the required information there. And so if you are someone who is trying to figure out how to simplify your current engineering practices, expedite how quickly you can deliver, meet a market or a backlog that's rapidly growing, right, under pressure to perform there, or looking for a boost. Maybe you've had a hiring freeze and or a recent change of the guard in terms of your SMEs, and you need some sort of safeguard or path forward for doing good design. Generate helps you there. Progress is our field solution. So if we have a design solution and we have an intelligence solution, we have a field solution, and this field solution enables anyone in the field with nothing more than an iPad to monitor what is being installed, production in real time, and stream that back tied to the schedule to understand activity completion at a very granular level. The model, ultimately, what it's doing is linking a schedule and a BIM model or BIM models tied to your project so that every object required for tracking is tied to an activity that needs to be done, and allowing someone in the field with basically their fingertip to highlight an object on a lightweight 3D model, understand what's happening to it, push the progression of that item or items to our central database and update progress. And this is wonderful because it's a lightweight offering that can scale across an organization rapidly and be deployed quickly to enable you to understand, you being the PM or maybe the nerve center of a project, what's actually happening in the field. Again, an issue we talked about at the very beginning, the disconnect between the people and the tech, trying to bridge that together. So our complete suite spans across design and construction, goes into the field, and it allows you to deliver efficiencies and insights in each category. Happy to spend more time in those as well, if we'd like to.
Great. Thank you, Garrett. If anyone has any additional questions or would like to reach out to us, again, please feel free. We're happy to set up some time to go through this and show you what it can do for your organization. Hope everyone has a great rest of the week, and we'll see you all soon.